This is Dr. Huerta, and in this lecture we're going to talk about types of bilingual and ESL programs used to service ELL or English Language Learning students. So what is the difference between bilingual and ESL programs if they both service ELLs? Bilingual programs use the native language or L1 for instruction while the students are also learning English. The students' L1 is used to make content understandable to them. Bilingual programs provide instruction in both the L1 and L2, so ESL instruction is a component of bilingual programs. So let me illustrate. When I taught bilingual kindergarten in Texas, the primary language of instruction was Spanish. That was the students' L1. But we did have a component during the day in which we would do ESL instruction to build English language familiarity and proficiency. Okay, so let's talk about ESL programs. ESL programs use ESL, English as a Second Language, methods and strategies to teach the English language and content. So English, the L2, is the primary language of instruction. Students coming from multiple language groups can be instructed in an ESL program since English is the common language of instruction. So again, illustration, when I did my student teaching, I was in an ESL classroom. So there were students that spoke many different languages. It wasn't just Spanish in this particular school. So therefore they had an ESL program to service the students' needs. And I just want to emphasize that ESL is not the same as you may have heard the term sink or swim when they just kind of throw you in and you have to just survive in another language. ESL is very conscious, as is bilingual, of the fact that you have learners who are having to learn content alongside a second language. So let's talk about different types of bilingual programs. If you read research on bilingual education, you will come across a lot of these terms and maybe more. A lot of them are interchangeable, so I'm just highlighting three big program types. The first is transitional or early exit bilingual education. Early exit is in the name because the program goal is to exit students as early as possible into all English instruction. So even though instruction begins in the student's L1, it moves to English very quickly. I put within 1 to 3 years, but it can vary, but it's as quickly as possible. Because maintaining the L1 is not a program goal, this program is known as a subtractive model. So you're subtracting the first language essentially. There's also developmental or late exit bilingual education, so you're still exiting students into English, but later. There's a goal to maintain the student's first language as the student acquires English. And because the goal of the program includes the maintenance of the L1, it's a semi-additive model. So additive model versus subtractive model. So you're adding English to the L1 without necessarily subtracting the L1 completely, at least not at first, okay? Then there's two-way immersion. The term you probably are hearing today is dual language program. So the program goal in a two-way immersion dual language program is to foster students to be fully bilingual, bicultural, and biliterate. So in this model, in the two-way, you actually have native English speakers and native speakers of another language, which in the U.S. tends to be in Spanish, and they're placed in the same classroom and given increments of instruction in both languages throughout their schooling so that they learn two languages. I put increments of instruction, meaning within dual language there's all kinds of variations of what percentage of the day is in what language. Is it an 80-20, 80% native language, 20% English, and then it moves into more of a 50-50? Is it one whole day is in Spanish, the next whole day is in English? Is it just science and math in English and language arts and history in the native language? So there's all kinds of variations, okay? But the goal is to foster complete bilingualism. So that's why it is a fully additive model of language learning, because you're wanting to add a language to actually two student groups in this case, okay? So let's look at some ESL program types. Again, there's many different ESL program types, but here's just three main ones that you may have come across. One is pull-out ESL. Now, what's interesting is that according to research findings, this is the least effective model for helping ELL students. In this model, students are pulled out of their English-only classrooms, not ESL, so there's no support here. It's just English only, nothing special, okay? But then they spend part of the day receiving ESL instruction, but outside of their classroom environment. Sheltered instruction, structured immersion, content-based ESL. Here's where the terminology starts getting kind of tricky, because they all, in this case, they really all mean the same thing. This is content and language being taught simultaneously by carefully selecting teaching strategies and classroom activities. And past, and I put especially recent research, there's a lot of exciting new research coming out on this teaching methodology, showing that it is a very effective method. A lot of the research is in middle and high school, because looking at English language learners in many states where bilingual education is strong or is allowed, it tends to be only in elementary, at the elementary level, and by the time the students get to middle school, there really isn't a bilingual program. So it shifts into this sheltered English, structured immersion, content-based ESL. So it's the idea that, of really thinking about how to teach content and language simultaneously when you have ELL students. Another ESL program type is the newcomer programs. Again, these vary greatly depending on the student needs, depending on the district, everything. But what's in common is that they're designed specifically to meet the needs of recently arrived immigrant students. And this is just kind of a generalization, but they usually include intense English immersion. Again, that's not ESL, that's like, all English, but also mixed with sheltered English instruction. Okay. So as a quick review and just a couple closing comments, bilingual programs use the L1 or native language alongside English to help students acquire the English language, also literacy skills and content knowledge. ESL programs use specific teaching methods to teach English language and content, and I would add, just to be very, very clear, that they are conscious of the fact that they have students learning a second language. So that's different from sink or swim mentality, in case if you've heard that term, where you just kind of get thrown into language. That's not ESL. That's definitely not bilingual, okay? And also there are many, many bilingual and ESL program types. We've just covered a few of the main ones, but I think that's enough for you to just get a start. If you really wanted to learn more about all the variations, you can, but this is a really good overview, especially I want you to recall the ideas of, is it an additive bilingual program, a subtractive? What is the program goal? And also, who are the students being serviced? And so that's the last point. It's important that school districts choose programs that will help their specific student population.